We have always got along fine with the niggas. We never mistreated them. And there's no complaints. And they are all happy. They are all happy.
We was asking with the Panthers. We was asking with them, civil rights movement. We was asking, now those people that were asking, they're all dead and in jail. So now what do you think we're going to do? Ask?
And it simply says exactly what black people have been crying for 400 years.
If you don't break the cycle, history repeats. If you don't crash the system, it reboots. If you don't eliminate the virus, it thrives. This is the algorithm of white supremacy. An algorithm is a list of steps followed to finish a task. The task or objective of white supremacy has always been the same: domination. Rather your present is 1619, 1775, 1863, 1968, 2020, or 100 years in the future. If this algorithm has not been ended, then its goal will remain the same. Despite the rising and falling of nations and institutions, the algorithm of white supremacy's reach is global. Its history is evil, and its effects have been injected deeply into the present. Focus your senses. Open your eyes. Ignore all distractions and upload this information into your mind. Jesus Christ. Do you think he'd really agree with what you devils did? I thought he said, without love, you have nothing. Are you sure we are looking in the same book? The Supreme Pontiff, commonly known as the Pope, is the worldwide leader of the Catholic Church. He determines what is acceptable for millions of people worldwide. His words and decrees are taken as the word of God. He is believed to be free of error. This is called papal infallibility. In 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued a papal bull known as Dum Diversas. A papal bull is an official proclamation or decree issued by the Pope. With his words being seen as that of God's, Pope Nicholas issued Dum Diversas, which had a disastrous effect on Africa. In the 1400s, there were laws clearly regulating who Christians could and could not enslave. When Portuguese ships began returning with slaves from West Africa, Pope Nicholas V addressed the issue of how to treat what he referred to as pagans. He gave King Alfonso of Portugal the right to invade, search out, capture, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ wheresoever placed, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. Let's put that in other words. The Pope gave a European king the right to invade in Jesus. He is believed to be free of error. This is called papal infallibility. In 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued a papal bull known as Dum Diversas. A papal bull is an official proclamation or decree issued by the Pope. With his words being seen as that of God's, Pope Nicholas issued Dum Diversas, which had a disastrous effect on Africa. In the 1400s, there were laws clearly regulating who Christians could and could not enslave. When Portuguese ships began returning with slaves from West Africa, Pope Nicholas V addressed the issue of how to treat what he referred to as pagans. He gave King Alfonso of Portugal the right to invade, search out, capture, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ wheresoever placed.
That's messed up when they use the Pope and they use the church as a reason to do y'all bad, man.
And the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. Let's put that in other words. The Pope gave a European king the right to invade in Jesus' name, conquer in Jesus' name, steal in Jesus'
name. I can say conquer in Jesus' name, steal in Jesus' name. That's fucked
up. And enslave in Jesus' name. Yet the man believed to be Jesus's representative on earth, a man whose words are put on par with that of God's, a man believed to be free of error, the most holy living being on the planet, was actually the devil, and may his name rot in the bowels of history forever. In Jesus' name.
What y'all think about that? Like, I'll be watching some interesting stuff, man.
After the hunt.
I'll be watching some interesting stuff. I decided to share and dialogue with some of this stuff with y'all, so y'all can understand where I be coming from sometimes. Melly Mel and Sweet Babe.
It is not the prey who authors the story, but the hunters. Rest assured that the authors will justify all of their murderous ways and forgive themselves for their prey's destruction. And as the survivors scramble, attempting to rebuild their former lives, the hunters will do all they can to silence them. Devil. A long line of justifications led Europe to perpetrate one of the worst atrocities ever, the transatlantic slave trade. Even to this day, people attempt to justify the slave trade by saying that European slave traders purchased slaves from Africans.
I don't give a fuck. Look, I don't give a fuck who they got them from. What the fuck you doing buying them? Shit, it's just like drugs. They don't give a fuck what you doing buying the drugs. Shit, for real.
They'll go just far enough into the past to blame the oppression of black people on black people. Yet the truth is more complex than they can handle. There is bound to be some snakes in every group of people. European slave traders took advantage of this for their own benefit at the cost of countless black lives. Although some Africans participated in the slave trade, many fought against it, building fortifications around their villages and assigning lookouts to alert the people. The fight continued aboard the ship in the form of rebellions, hunger strikes, and even suicide. The transatlantic slave trade haunted the people of Africa, and they fought against it. Africans also did not view the slave trade as selling their own people, as they did not have a united black identity, as some people ignorantly suggest when they say that Africans sold their own people into slavery. Africans were not united. The Europeans were the ones who were united. They were united in their desire to have black slaves. Slavery wasn't new. But what the Europeans brought to it was a deeply racial connotation justified by their highest religious official, the Pope. It was the Europe.
Melly Mel, what's on your mind, Melly Mel?
Hey. Hey.
What's up?
What's up? Me and my sister about to come on. My sister tapping in right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a lot to say.
I hope y'all do. You know, I like to talk about other subjects too. I like to get my nigga shit on, but I like to build too. I like to learn. I love knowledge. I love knowledge.
Look, we need this shit, Kimbo.
Oh, I know, because I know so many people, they got, like, a lot of people don't understand. Like, they got the story discombobulated, I'm going to say, or they've been told incorrect. So I decided to share it that I ran across that I feel like this is a good example of truth. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, she said she's trying to come on right now.
Okay. I hit play till she get here now.
Europeans who created, ran, and heavily benefited from the intricately complex and economically lucrative system of the transatlantic slave trade. A symphony of sorrow and death, the longest forced movement of people ever recorded, spanning centuries. Hundreds of bodies would be packed together tightly, chained to the bottom of a ship. Initially, merchant ships were modified for use in the slave trade. In time, they began building ships specifically to carry slaves on. There wasn't enough space to stand, and the air was foul as people lay dead, scared, and alone in their own bodily wastes. This was the Middle Passage. Traders bought Africans with European goods and took them from West Africa across the Atlantic Ocean to what the Europeans called the New World. Some estimates say that 10 to 15% of Africans died during the voyage, which lasted nearly 3 months. The survivors were sold as slaves and returned for goods.
Nigga say nigga took me on a 3-month voyage. Man, them people probably ain't never been, I don't know, some of them probably have, but on the ship for 3 months.
Such as sugar, rum, and molasses. And the slave traders turned around and went back to Europe to start the journey over again. And they hail Western civilization as the pinnacle of humanity, when indeed it seems to be the pinnacle of inhumanity. There was no age of exploration. There was no beauty in European colonization. The story of the American colonies is not some patriotic dream where America's manifest destiny was fulfilled. This was an invasion, a story all about benefiting from death, genocide, and perpetual servitude, causing problems and ignoring their effects even till this day. When we mention what happened,
you hear that, Mayor? Causing problems and ignoring the effect. You hear that, Mayor?
You look in the other direction. This evil was carried out against our people.
Do they hear it? Do they hear it?
I hope they do, Mayor.
I hear it. I hear it. I understand it. Look, I know this. Look, I just
we live it
like this.
We live it.
We say, but you say blacks sold other blacks. It lasted centuries, we say, but you say it was a long time ago. It still has effects today, we say, but you say you were never a slave and I was never a slave owner. This is the algorithm of white supremacy. They always ignore, attack, or deny. If you don't break the cycle, history repeats. If you don't crash the system, it reboots.
Hey.
It all makes sense to me.
We are African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. Because we weren't brought here to be made citizens today, now that we've become awakened to some degree and we begin to ask for those things which they say are supposedly for Americans, they look upon us with hostility and unfriendliness. We invested 310 years of slave labor, 310 years, every day of which your and my mother and father worked for nothing. Not 8 hours a day. There was no union in that day. They worked from sun up until sundown, from can't see in the morning until can't see at night. They never had a day off. And on Sunday, they were allowed to sit down and sing about when they died, they wouldn't be slaves no more. When they died.
When they died.
Mm.
1619, the year believed to have marked the first arrival of Africans in the colony of Virginia. In actuality, captive Africans were present in what would become the United States for over 100 years before 1619, as the European trade of Africans began in the mid-1400s. Throughout the years, many have claimed that the first slave ship was named Jesus. Although claiming a first slave ship is difficult, it is true that the first major English trader did use a boat named Jesus of Lubeck. John Hawkins was said to have been a devout Christian, often holding service on board and telling his crew to serve God and love one another, all while plundering ships, stealing slaves, and lying to Africans to lure them to the New World. Africans entered into this new world, a new world that Europe granted itself access to by invading, spreading disease, killing natives, and continually breaking treaties. They were sold at slave auctions, inspected like cattle, having their mouths pried open, their muscles squeezed, their bodies violated, separated from families, and brought to a place unfamiliar to them, a place to build a world for those who had destroyed theirs. What happens when you subjugate a group of people to the lowest levels of society? The people will always fight their oppressor. But many make the ignorant claim that enslaved people in America did.
Go ahead.
Pause. What happens? What happens when you make people and subject our people to, you know?
The people gonna lash out. They gonna lash out all kind of ways. And some must be so messed up. They lash out at the wrong people, man.
Yes.
We start taking it out on each other instead of taking it out on the people that really did it.
That's what we're all victims of.
It's sorry. Like displaced anger.
It is. Look, it said it right there.
Nah, it's real. I had watched this. I said, you know what? I want to share this with a few people, man, because it was so deep to me. It's like that's really what's going on.
That's exactly what's going on.
It's crazy. It's how they do us, though, man. It's how they do us.
Keep going.
Not fight back, but rather waited for the North to end slavery. They never heard of the Stono Rebellion of 1739.
The Stono Rebellion, man. Like people be saying, like that stupid shit Kanye said about we all in slavery because we allowed it. No, nigga, you just didn't study the revolt. You didn't study all of the fighting we did do. They're not gonna teach us in school about how we did fight, but this is what he breaking down right here, y'all.
Right. Yeah. I get it.
German Coast Uprising of 1811.
Let me go back a little bit.
Yeah.
I started talking. I don't want to fuck it up.
For the
You
North
running
to end slavery. They never heard of the Stono Rebellion of 1739, the German Coast Uprising of 1811, or Nat Turner's Rebellion. But the slave owners had heard of these, and they were fearful of being killed in uprisings. In order to calm their fears, laws regulating the actions and treatment of slaves, known as slave codes, were written into law. Enslaved people had to have written permission from their overseer to travel, and if they attempted to run, they could be branded with an R on their cheek, have their hamstrings cut, or be killed. Blacks were prohibited from owning weapons, and if they were caught doing so, they would receive 39 lashes and have.
If the people wasn't fighting back, why would y'all be worried about them having weapons?
Right.
I hate they try to make us look like we were just some weak, docile people that laid down. Yes, sir, master. No, sir, master. That's a lie. A lot of us died saying, fuck you, master.
Have their weapon confiscated. If an enslaved person attempted to defend themselves from their master, the slaveholder had the right to kill them. Enslaved people were considered property, so they were prohibited from owning property. Blacks accused of any crime against a white person were sentenced to death by all white juries. There were even laws punishing whites if they attempted to help enslaved people. It was illegal for slaves to read and write. Anyone caught teaching them how to do so was subject to large fines and up to 6 months in jail. They were also prohibited from congregating due to the fear of them organizing to fight against.
Like right now, they don't want too many niggas standing on the corner.
Right.
Their own oppression. If a black man was accused of raping a white woman, he would be castrated or executed, all while the bodies of enslaved women were free to be violated without repercussion. Children born to enslaved women were born as slaves, and in most cases died as slaves. But you, dear listener, were never a slave. This has no effect on the present, or at least that's what they'd like you to believe.
That's what they want you to think. Sweet babe, welcome to the party.
What it do? What it do?
Want you to think.
That's what they want you to think.
That's what they want you to think.
We are playing an infinite
What's up, sweet
game.
Sweet babe? Do I need to pause it for you, sweet babe?
Yeah, because I have. Go ahead.
Salute to you, sweet babe.
Hey, honey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, baby?
Good. At work. But yeah, I want to chime in. Like, how can we relate and educate our young Black people about how much we have went through and how far we have came? What if we had to go back into slavery, getting our ass whooped, getting sold, getting beat, getting, just getting handled, like hung, like literally, like, I mean, have they stopped Black history? How far do they go into history? Because these youngsters don't know what our ancestors went through.
They don't teach you much. They don't teach you much.
You know, they don't know what we went through. Right. You know what I'm saying? You got in trouble back in the day. You either went to prison as a slave, or you went to fight in the war as a slave.
Still treated like one, right?
And still treated like one. Do they know how far along we have come as Black people? They don't realize it. Like, I mean, I was born in the 70s, and like this new generation.
I'm 75.
Already. But watch this, bro.
Like,
even with us, watch this. Even with us, the shit that I'm learning now, Didn't nobody know older people teach me none of this shit? I used to wonder why old people didn't talk about the past around us, why they didn't pass down a lot of shit. I tell the truth.
But you know what?
I grew up thinking our grandparents and great-grandparents would knew some shit that they were scared to speak about, some shit they was hiding from us that they didn't want us to know because they felt like it was going to affect us in a bad way. They wanted us to think everything was okay when they should have been teaching us the truth.
But let me tell you this. My grandmother, my great-grandmother, she from East Texas. They didn't talk about slavery. They didn't talk about how she worked on the plantation. Pine Hill, Rush, Texas.
Okay, I know you're talking about. Okay, I know what that says.
Yeah, my mother was born in Pine Hill. Like my great-grandparents was from Pine Hill, Texas. But they from Rush. But they stayed in Pine Hill and moved to Henderson. But she didn't talk about how she worked in a cotton field and worked for a plantation's owner, and and I had to go and dig up some, like, I think Ancestors.com. I seen how they took the census back then, how many children they had, how much education.
Exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
But how she related to me was she read the Bible. She read the Bible to me, and she took those stories and kind of elaborated on it, and I didn't grasp it right then. But now that I'm in 30s and 40s, I'm seeing wars and rumors of wars. I'm seeing homosexuality. I'm seeing all different walks of life that she talked about and she read in her Bible, and I didn't want to hear that. But now I done digested. Now I'm manifesting it. And it's like real, So she didn't talk literally about slavery and how they, work for. My grandfather's a white man,
right?
Mm-hmm. So
watch this, sweet babe. And a lot of our family, if they go do that Ancestry.com, that a lot of people run from their DNA. It's gonna be a white boy or a white girl in there somewhere, fourth, fifth.
And I want to, what? If I had the money, I want to find out, because I might got some oil and some land up in East Texas. I need to go get.
For real.
Hey, no bullshit.
I think everybody should want to know whatever your truth is, even if it's something you disagree with, it's still you. If you don't want to like who you are, that's called self-hate to me. I don't care if you got some white, some Chinese, some African. That's your individuality. That's what makes you special. That's what makes you beautiful. But we've been taught all this stupid stuff, and it make people what the full name, Blumenbach, Sir some Blumenbach, the motherfucker who invented race. He fucked everything up. It was a time we didn't have a thing called race. We weren't even looking at people like that. When that shit got invented, that's caused all these problems we got right now. We still did. They caused the problem and ignored the motherfucking the reactions, or ignore the shit that come with the problem. They just leave us here to just deal with it. That's what government do.
All right. No, you are absolutely correct. And look, I just got tapped into this ancestry, and that's why I challenge everyone to tell me what I am, right? So let me tell you one thing. Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5. All I know is on my father's side, they came from Crooked Island, Jamaica, right?
Right.
On my mother's side, came from Portugal and Italy.
Right.
Okay. So,
I can believe that.
Therefore, I don't know what I am, and you don't know what I am.
You know what we are? Male.
Human. I
watch this. This is the size of it, or the skinny of the fat to me. This is the way I put it. This is what we are, male. I hate to say this because I'm not a big name scientist, but I'm gonna break it down to you like one.
Go ahead.
And you and Sweet Babe and everybody else listening, we are a whole new race.
That's what I feel like.
They invented the race thing when we came from wherever we came, and we're in America, and we got mixed with all of this shit. We created a whole new race that's not been classified.
Yeah.
We had no classification because we mixed with so much shit.
Exactly.
We mutts, basically.
And I'm okay to say that.
I'm okay with that because, like I said, everything, all of that shit that puts you together makes you individual. That's the way it makes you who you are. That's the way I look at it. Somebody love the fuck out of your mix. You know what I'm saying? For real.
I ain't found them yet, but there'll be a day.
Man,
there will be a fucking day. Okay. But I've always embraced my, like, you know, I'm very different. Lips are, I ain't got the big lips. My nose is like this. Hair nappy as fuck. You know what I'm saying? Right. Heart pure than a motherfucker. Right. I still, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I've never identified with nothing. Right. Except being a Black woman. Because I am a Black woman. Facts. Right. But I haven't been accepted. I haven't been accepted from the Black community. They're like, oh, you too light. Your lips too little.
They don't, Mel, because
that's how they judge my mom. That's what I was saying on Trigger Live. I said Millie Mel favor my mom so much because, like I said, my grandfather is a white man, and my mother is light skinned, good hair. She was. I lost her, but they treated her different. Yeah, they treated her different.
Treated different my whole life.
Who told people that everybody in Africa was dark skinned? Don't you know they got people in Africa our color? Regular Africans, not no.
Yeah, they got white Africans. They got people. They got people over there, all different kind of colors.
But
all different kind of pigmentation.
That's just the stuff we've been taught. Sometimes they think if you're a different color, like you less Black than somebody else. Black is not a color. That's just some shit we use. A descriptive term. It's a way of life. It's how you live. And I'm not with that.
Out here to America. Knowing that my father and all of my father's side are from Jamaica, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then my mother's from Portuguese, right? Italian, right. Little nose, low lips, you know, right. Got a fat ass. Hey, right. And I bust a clip. Hey. I'm like, shit, I'm just human. So right. What I've learned to embrace, and yeah, I talk a lot of shit. I put my shit in melodies because, you know, when you come from so much trauma, the best thing you can do is just like make a rhyme out of it.
Sometimes when they give you lemons, you got to make lemonade.
Look, okay, Beyonce.
Man, crazy.
No. I'm being real though. Like
watch this. Like what Mary just said. If you have Indian in you, you are part Native American. Exactly. But if you got, I'm gonna say 5 to 3 to, or maybe even 7% of one thing, but you got 80% of another thing. I'm sorry, you are that 80%.
Yeah.
You do have that other in you now. You got the right to claim all of that. That's what I believe.
You absolutely have the right to claim all that.
And Chris, when you say your mother's side is Jamaican and Costa Rican, Panamanian, all of that, how do you think those people got to those islands?
You know, when my mother was born, on her birth card, they had Negro.
Right.
And she was you can see through her. That's how red she was.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so I just wish our younger generation can relate of what we went through, what our ancestors went through, and how far we have came, and kind of put that with being mindful and being productive instead of being just.
I think we know the schools ain't gonna do it. I think it's more of us. We gotta teach our kids ourselves. We gotta make it our business to make it interesting to them, or like you saying with show them their ancestors first. You know, make them start there. Just Show interest
And
in
then
it.
you know what else they took? They took church, they took prayer out of schools. They took ass whoopings out of schools, like discipline and structure. They took that.
Yeah.
And they try to put it out, it takes a village to raise a child.
It does.
Right.
It does.
But
and
when you
why
got
did they
people
take that out of our schools?
When you got people, watch this. When you got people, all they got to do is lobby for some shit or get enough petitions to get something like that. That's the world we live in. If more people say they don't want the Bible in school or church in school, they try to separate the church and the state. It always was supposed to be separate, but sometimes it get intertwined, and that's crazy. I don't understand why it was a problem, but I guess we live in a time right now. Everybody is sensitive about everything.
Very sensitive. Very sensitive.
Crazy.
But you cannot take faith out of family.
Right. They can take it out of school, but you can't take it out your faith.
You cannot take faith out of family. You take it out of school, you could take it out of whatever, but when you have it embedded, and faith is not it's not a religion, it's not a cult, it's not this, it's not that. Look, when you understand faith and when it's embedded in you, when you ain't got to go to church, I could get on my knees at the front doorsteps of my door.
Right.
You feel me? And I could bring faith. When you are from the soil, when you know that you can walk outside of your house and get on them 2 knees and worship. It's a relationship. Faith is a relationship. And if you don't get it, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And you have got to have a relationship before you can even right. It's a relationship. It has nothing to do with if I go to this church, if I go to that church, if I go here, if I go there. Nah.
Right.
I don't gotta give my tithes in a basket. Nigga, I give my tithes in my community. I give my tithes in what I do.
Like that. You're right, man. It don't have to work like that at all, man. It don't have to work like that.
Okay. I was getting too loud, Kimbo. You had to slow me down. Okay.
Oh, no. Look, let me get back to the see why we was at.
Let's go.
Game of dominoes. Not the type that you slam on the table when you win. The type that children often play when they carefully stack dominoes up on their ends, making a long, winding line of dotted tiles. If done carefully enough, tipping over the first tile will cause a chain reaction that will cause the next to fall, and the next, and so forth until the final tile falls. Now, once they all fall, what reasonable human would suggest that the falling of the first tile had nothing to do with the falling of the last? How is it that they can trace their dominoes all the way back to the Pilgrims and identify that as a monumental moment that shaped their history, but they can't seem to understand how slavery monumentally shaped Black history? Because you were never a slave. It is all by design. The algorithm of white supremacy must deny all attempts to crash the system. The American Revolution, the war fought by the 13 colonies to free themselves from the British Empire, a pivotal moment where the founding fathers forged their way into history forever. According to your history teacher, the American Revolution is essentially a patriotic dream where heroes were born and the destiny of a nation was set. Give me liberty or give me death. What is liberty to this man? What liberty was Patrick Henry so ready to die for that he denied it to others? A giant among men, this revolutionary founding father bought and sold slaves throughout his life and owned 67 slaves at the time of his death. Yet in his writings, he clearly states that owning slaves is evil. What a hypocrite. But he was in good company. Thomas Jefferson, one of the most influential founding fathers to come out of the Revolution, the man who penned the Declaration of Independence, in which the colonists informed King George of their decision to split from the British Empire, leading to the creation of the United States, the man who wrote the immortal words forever etched in history. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if all men are created equally, then why did Thomas Jefferson himself have slaves? Why did he have a sexual relationship with an underaged enslaved woman by the name of Sally Hemings? Something that today we would call statutory rape. Did he really believe that all men were created equally? Such beautiful words inspired many blacks to join the fight against the British. Around 9,000 black men fought for the Continental Army, many of which were promised their freedom in return for their service, although at the end of the war, a number of slave owners failed to keep their promise. In contrast to the 9,000 blacks fighting for the colonies, 20,000 enslaved people fought for the British Army, who also had promised them freedom. Yet, at the end of the war, many of them were enslaved by the very men who had filled their...
Do you hear this shit? We fought for the American side and we fought for the British side. Both sides fought to get free, and at the end of the war, they decided not to free us. They decided to enslave us again. Man, that's cold in the mug, man. That's cold, man.
Heads with false promises as they fled the colonies to become slaves in Jamaica or St. Augustine. Africans fighting against the United States was revisited during the War of 1812, in which the United States fought and defeated Great Britain once again. America's national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, was written by Francis Scott Key during the War of 1812. It was initially a poem called Defense of Fort McHenry. Key had written it as he witnessed the British Navy bombard the fort in what would lead to an American victory and the proud flying of the U.S. flag. In the third stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner, Key addresses the black refugees who had joined the British in hopes of gaining their freedom, threatening slaves that fought against the United States with death, writing, "No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave."
We're proud of our country. We respect our flag.
So, man, now you get what Trump was really saying. Now you get the full effect of the shit, man. You know what I'm saying? You got to peep that. That's why if you know your history good, you'll know what these motherfuckers really be trying to tell you.
No, I know.
That's fucked up, man. That's crazy.
Know.
They know their history. They know what really happened.
All-out offensive.
What happened? I skipped. I fucked up.
On December 1st, 1955, Declaration of Independence, overthrowing
whether he's going to sell these houses to Negroes.
Neighborhood. Your housing prices will go up, created the American middle class, and placed many great again by perpetually denying blacks a great America. The southern states passed new black codes attempting to control black labor as well as many other freedoms. In some states, blacks who had jobs other...
Wait, y'all see that little cartoon they just showed y'all?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a show on all them cartoons and stuff from back then, like all of the political stuff, like before they was the elephant and the donkey. I'm gonna show y'all I'm gonna break all that shit down to y'all and show y'all. They cleaned it up. I'm gonna show you what all that shit used to be. I'm gonna fuck y'all up. Watch.
than a servant or farmer were forced to pay annual fines. Some states required blacks to have employment contracts each year. If they left before the contract ended, they could be arrested, forced to forfeit their wages, or be placed back into forced labor. Jim Crow laws legalized segregation. Blacks were forbidden from living in white neighborhoods, using white bathrooms or water fountains, and in Atlanta, blacks were even given a different Bible to swear on while in court. Jim Crow laws legally ruled all areas of black life until the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. At the end of Reconstruction, white Southerners successfully subjugated blacks to the very bottom of society.
Facts, Merry Melodies. Facts.
Isn't anybody else interested in upholding standards? Our world is coming crumbling down. The coons are coming.
Archie, 12% of the population is black. There should be a
remember
lot of
that
black
shit,
families
man.
living out here.
Yeah, this is only a beginning, but I think it's wonderful.
Wonderful, huh? Well, let's see how wonderful it is when a watermelon rinds come flying out the window.
In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
I ain't never heard no president talk like that.
Today, people would lead you to believe that poverty in the black community is solely a result of laziness. While, in actuality, poverty was created and maintained by the government. After Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws and other black codes worked to confine blacks to the lowest levels of society. When the idea of home ownership became part of the American dream, blacks were systematically kept away from it. The Great Depression had a disastrous effect on the American economy. Home ownership rates plunged to all-time lows. How come when blacks live in poverty, it is viewed as a problem from within? You must pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. But when whites live in poverty, it becomes a national issue that must be dealt with immediately. In the 1930s, as part of his New Deal to bring America out of the Depression, President Franklin Roosevelt passed various laws regarding housing.
The reason why.
Roosevelt's reforms created the American middle class and placed many families into affordable homes. Unfortunately, his reforms were targeted at aiding whites, while blacks were stopped from participating in the growing middle class. While the Federal Housing Administration was building hundreds of thousands of homes and filling them with white families, they were also solidifying the practice of redlining. Redlining is the discriminatory practice of denying various housing services such
as keeping niggas' ass in the hood.
Look,
in other
let's
words.
talk about redlining.
Go ahead.
Who knows about redlining?
I know about redlining.
I know about redlining too.
Right.
In that shit, look. And when I
Coach, we didn't have no vote back then. Coach, you must forgot. Women and niggas just started voting not too long ago. They weren't counting our vote for real when they gave it to us.
They wasn't.
No, I know about that. Okay, California, that's why you got places like Compton and all of that. In Dallas, why we got.
Hold on. Compton Compton was not a
It didn't start out. It didn't start. It wasn't inside the. It was outside the red line at first.
Exactly. No. Exactly. Compton was far from that.
Right. It was good at first. It was an upstanding, beautiful community. White people.
Because it was a white community.
Right.
Everyone from Compton was white. There was no niggas in Compton.
The same with my neighborhood where I'm from. It was white. It was lily white at first. When we came in, it was still a couple of them there, but shit changed overnight. It was like one summer, everybody was gone. I think I was like 2-3 years old. Everybody disappeared. Bobby's not outside anymore. Nah, red line is real.
Look.
As banking and insurance on the basis of race.
Yes, project's part of the red lining.
In 1935, the Homeowners Loan Corporation was asked to create residential security maps that would help banks and real estate investors assess how safe their investments were. The most desirable areas with the newest infrastructure were outlined in green and designated as Type A. These areas were usually white suburbs, while the least desirable areas were outlined in red and labeled Type D. These were typically older areas where black people lived. The government refused to insure mortgages in high-risk areas, so banks rarely gave them. The obvious racial bias held within residential security maps gave federal support and justification for discriminatory practices from banks and real estate agents, effectively segregating the United States along lines that are still drawn today.
You see how they can still play slave games with you, but like with playing them from an intelligent point of view, they ain't got to do it in your face no more. You know what I'm saying? See how they can do it creatively?
Well, they try to do it creatively, but the fucked up part about it is, look, you got fucking niggas that understand that shit.
Right. That's facts.
That's what they did. They didn't think that was gonna happen.
Right, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be trying to go against all of that bullshit. Like we're supposed to be building to offset what they thought. We're supposed to be proving them wrong. That's supposed to be our mission, to prove them wrong that we are great.
Bra ba 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 ba. What the fuck?
Redlined areas were underfunded and neglected, becoming slums and ghettos that would be demolished. With property taxes determining school funding, black schools went heavily underfunded, leading to joblessness, more poverty, and crime.
So now do you understand that if the bank won't insure mortgages in that area, now those schools will suffer? It trickles down. The police mad, they even got to come through there because y'all ain't paying no motherfucking taxes. I'll lock all you motherfuckers up. Y'all really a fucking nuisance to me. Y'all out here selling these drugs, fucking with these store owners. They keep calling me. I'm trying to trick with this chick at the projects. Y'all making me have to come to work. I'd rather be sitting at the office eating donuts and shit.
Right.
See, bro, if niggas understood the problem, they would move different. They would even hustle different.
They'd leave it in our hands. They'd leave it in our hands.
Thank you. Thank you.
They fucking leave it in
Even
our
today,
hands.
schools in predominantly white areas receive around $23 billion more dollars annually. Even after segregation was declared unconstitutional, racist whites would leave neighborhoods with growing black populations, a phenomenon known as white flight. But once those old structures that blacks were living in became trendy again, predominantly white investors swoop back in to gentrify the neighborhood, and the cycle continues.
Say when we make it worth something, if we make it valuable versus turn it down, if we turn it up, they'll let us have it. But if we make it worth something, get a whole bunch of thriving businesses and all of that shit, they come back, they want it again. Y'all see it happen in every city.
Today, and we haven't even scratched the surface. To view poverty in the black community as some type of inner defect that could be simply fixed by filling out a job application ignores 150 years of unfair housing practices designed to keep black people in substandard conditions. It ignores the fact that measures taken to limit discrimination, such as the 1968 Fair Housing Act, have been widely ignored by local and state governments. It ignores the lasting legacy of an era that refuses to remain in the past, unsurprisingly gaining new life from the president, who wrote, "I am happy to inform all of the people living their suburban lifestyle dream that you will no longer be bothered or financially hurt by having low-income housing built in your neighborhood. Your housing prices will go up based on the market, and crime will go down."
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
There are literally two Americas.
What they say reveals their deepest fears and frustrations. Why did you select Levittown to live?
We were looking for a place to buy a home. We looked at Levittown, and we liked the homes here. We liked the advantages that Levittown seemed to offer in comparison to other cities. And we understood that it was going to be all white, and we were very happy to buy a home here.
How about your children? Have you talked with them about the Myers?
I feel that it's something that we adults should solve without bringing the children into it any more than we have to. We're doing it for the children.
We're very interested in your house, and we'd like an application. And I remember what he said to me. He looked at me, he said, "It's not me, but the management has not as yet decided whether he's going to sell these houses to Negroes or not." And
You can't believe it. You really thought you had it made. You know, everything is falling into place.
well, I'd like you to conceive that somebody telling you that there's no recourse, telling you that openly and outright like that.
Two Americas.
Despite discriminatory housing practices, black people were able to build thriving, self-sufficient towns. The most famous of which was the Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma, better known as Black Wall Street. In 1906, a wealthy African-American landowner known as O.W. Gurley purchased 40 acres of land in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He pledged to only sell land to blacks, as they were unable to participate in white society. By 1913, Greenwood had doctors and law offices, grocery stores, churches, hotels, drugstores, beauty salons, and barbershops.
That's what they fear.
That's exactly what they fear. Look.
Because watch this, Mel. When we was living like that and we was doing our own thing and we was being prosperous, they came to try to take our toys from us.
Yet hate would bring it all down. People living in the areas surrounding Greenwood were becoming increasingly jealous of its growing prosperity. In 1921, tensions flared into an all-out massacre after a 17-year-old white girl, Sarah Page, accused Dick Rowland, a black teenager, of assaulting her on an elevator. The day following Rowland's arrest, the Tulsa Tribune ran a story labeled "Nab Negro for Attacking Girl in Elevator," in which they
Look at that, man. The little boy tripped and fell and bumped into the little girl on accident. And that's what they said in the newspaper. Said he attacked the girl, man. And they used this to massacre the city the whole time.
Yeah. They described the incident as an attempted assault. During this time, even an attempted assault on a white woman was treated like rape and could result in a lynching. It is notable to say that Sarah Page refused to press charges on Rowland. This gives great reason to assume his innocence. Right. After an angry citizen called the Tulsa police commissioner and told them that they were going to lynch the black devil that assaulted that girl, Rowland was moved to a more secure cell on top of the courthouse. Black citizens feared the possibility of a lynching, so they armed themselves and went to the courthouse to protect Rowland. When a white man tried to wrestle a black man's gun away from him, it discharged. That is when all hell broke loose. The shooting at the courthouse started 2 hours of fighting in downtown Tulsa until the men who came to protect Rowland returned to Greenwood. Fears of a Negro uprising grew as skirmishes continued. The National Guard received orders to go into Greenwood and take unarmed blacks into protective custody. As Greenwood's residents and black workers from Tulsa's white districts were being forced into detention centers, angry whites descended into Greenwood, viciously massacring people, setting fires, stealing and destroying buildings. Even police officers who were supposed to help joined in. In the aftermath, an all-white jury blamed the massacre on Greenwood's black residents, and no whites were charged. Most of Greenwood's population of 10,000 people were left homeless, with over 6,000 living in internment camps for months. The Red Cross mounted a relief effort, drawing criticism for using taxpayer dollars to help the victims. Tulsa's white neighborhoods and businesses were not harmed during the riot. The story of Black Wall Street is famous, but it isn't the only one. The Rosewood Massacre took place in Florida just 2 years after Tulsa. 150 blacks were killed. What about the Colfax Massacre of 1873, where 150 black men were murdered for congregating at a courthouse? Or the 1898 Wilmington race riot, where black participation in the government led whites to make a white Declaration of Independence, overthrowing the local government, killing hundreds of blacks? Or the Atlanta Massacre of 1906, which saw a death toll of over 100. White violence towards blacks took the form of massacres and lynchings throughout the United States. Blacks were pushed out of white American society, and when they created successful towns, they were destroyed. Add that to the government's discriminatory housing policies, and you have a recipe for destruction.
Yes, they used to call it Black Wall Street, but it wasn't Wall Street, but, you know, it was a prosperous community. Well, I'm 95, and I was 6 years old at the time of the disaster. Whites decided to burn down the homes of 10,000 people. So that was not a riot. It was planned desecration. We were just small children. And my family had not told me about prejudice and hate and things like that. I thought everything.
Did you hear that? Like she said, her family hadn't told her and taught her about what all they had been through. And that's the same way our parents did with us, or our grandparents. A lot of stuff they hear from us.
In the preamble to the Constitution, referred to me. It was 80 years before the state of Oklahoma actually had a commission to study it and remove the blame from us as victims and put the blame where it belonged, on the Ku Klux Klan.
We don't hate the Negro. God made him black, and he made us white. And you will find this laid out in the 11th chapter of Genesis, in which he segregated the races. And we, knowing that for 5,000 years the white man has been the supreme race, we, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, intend to keep it the white race.
No. And that's
the promises of equal treatment under law and the hope.
What you say, Mel?
And that's why today I feel like in this last 16 months, and it's only been a little while.
Right.
It's only been a little while. And you know, we inching. Look at the cases that we done got justice for.
Right. Facts. That's true.
You feel me? And I watch everything. And I heard the judge for the case of Ahmaud Arbery. And before he even gave a verdict, he fucking stated morals. He said there was no remorse.
No facts.
Like, I listened to that, and like I made my daughter listen to that, because it's a turning point. It's a turning point, right? Like they say, better late than never, right? But I don't live
from listening to the president, what we just heard saying, segregation now, segregation forever, segregation tomorrow, from hearing the judge talk like that, the president talk like that, now you're hearing a judge in the courtroom actually start to speak against this shit.
Did you hear him?
Right, yes.
And when he handed down those verdicts, right? In my bones. And I don't give a fuck what no one got to say. Like, I am a Melanite. You feel me? And in my bones, it felt so good just to hear, because I study. I study everything. And I understand, like, the system, this, that, all that. And just to hear that judge give his perspective. This is a whole white judge. He's a whole white judge.
Right.
And there was there was 9 white jurors. I don't even think there was a black. There may have been 2 black jurors. However, like, just to hear him say to these white men that chased him down with no remorse, you're going to pay. You are going to pay with no possibility to get out. Like,
you know, a turning point was when Amber Geiger got found guilty in Dallas, because that was kind of unheard of. And then it's the funny part. A lot of people don't know Amber Geiger and her partner was a part of a little Mexican dude getting killed like that. Like, they do a lot and they cover it up. So when she got sentenced, man, to people in Dallas, it was like seeing a fucking black unicorn or something. It was unheard of. So I was like, hey, man, I don't know what's going on. Maybe 2020 mean these motherfuckers are starting to see something clearly, but something is changing in the judicial system and everything. Maybe it's because a lot of those old farts have died off or retired, and maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
And look, I've never had faith in, like, I'd rather be carried by than judged by, you know, going back to my Ice Cube lyrics, right? But I felt like to be judged by 12, and them 12 all came to a whole verdict. So I'm like, do I want to be carried by 12, or should I be judged by, you know, I mean, carried by 6 or judged by, like, I really, and it made me, it actually made me feel okay, because I never trusted. And that's something, like, maybe I shouldn't, you know, be explaining myself right now on fucking YouTube, but like,
yeah, you're right, man. Let's say that. Let's keep going. You're right. You probably don't need to explain that.
Participating in a world where freedom reigns were dashed during and after Reconstruction. By the time the civil rights movement began in the 1950s, promises of fair treatment, equality, and voting were but distant dreams from a forgotten past. Although the South usually serves as our example of racism and hatred, blacks also face deep levels of discrimination in the North and throughout the United States. Segregation was the law of the land and was ruled by the Supreme Court as constitutional in the Plessy versus Ferguson case of 1896. Its dismantling would become one of the main focuses of the...
Hold on, let me this fun fact right here. In that case, Plessy versus Ferguson, just think last month, something like that, Plessy was the case was overturned in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Find this it just now this year. Just crazy.
Yeah,
Civil rights movement. The start of the civil rights movement is said to have began with Rosa Parks and her refusal to give her seat up to a white man on the bus. Rosa Parks is legendary, but most people focus solely on what she did on the bus. Some even jokingly say that she was just tired, yet few know what she did before that fateful moment. In her own words, she said,
I was not sitting in the front of the bus, as so many people have said, and neither was my feet hurting, as many people have said. But I had made up my mind that I would not give in any longer to legally enforced racial segregation.
Before she stepped foot on that bus in 1955, Parks was heavily involved in the civil rights movement for many years, working as secretary of the Montgomery chapter of the NAACP for 12 years before her arrest, organizing committees for equal justice and becoming involved in civil rights court cases. She even attended a school that taught activists how to fight for racial equality. Rosa Parks was not a tired little old lady. She was a revolutionary-minded freedom fighter. Years before her arrest, Parks had a bad
Look, they don't tell you that part in school, do they?
interaction with a bus driver named...
What you were saying?
I say that's why I take, like, you know, my daughter been in Bible school for so many years. Like, that's why I take, like, outside sources, because these sources, they don't do that. You know, they don't do it.
They ain't gonna go. They can't go that deep because they gotta follow curriculum when they getting paid.
Right.
Named James Blake. In Montgomery, it was customary for blacks to pay their bus fare at the front, exit the bus, and then re-enter from the back where the colored seats were located instead of paying and walking.
Look, y'all didn't know that. Y'all didn't know we couldn't even walk through the bus, huh?
King
Hey,
past
Sweet
white
Babe, say
suits.
drop the
In
link. Drop the link for Sweet
1943,
Babe.
Blake instructed Rosa to pay her fare and re-enter from the back. After she exited the bus, James Blake drove off without her. Parks swore to never ride his bus again. She didn't know that he would be the bus driver that led to her arrest. It is possible to think that this earlier interaction influenced her decision to disobey Blake's orders.
They didn't have that in the Rosa Parks movie, did they?
No.
So they'll never tell our whole story.
No.
On December 1st, 1955, Parks paid her bus fare and sat down in the colored section. After the whites-only seats filled up, the bus driver, James Blake, ordered Rosa and 3 other black people to vacate their seats. They complied, but Rosa felt a determination to stay. In her head was the story of Emmett Till, the black teenager who had been killed after allegedly flirting with a white woman in August of the same year. Just days earlier, Rosa had learned of the acquittal of the 2 men who killed Emmett Till. The story devastated her, but it also gave her resolve to fight the system. When asked if she was going to get up, Parks refused. Blake then threatened to call the police, to which Rosa replied, "You may do that." Rosa was arrested and charged with violating Montgomery's segregation law. She was bailed out the same day by Edgar Nixon, the president of the Montgomery NAACP that she worked for.
Hey.
Days later, she was found guilty of disobedience.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know they just did a new special on Emmett Till?
I haven't seen it yet. But
it's on ABC, but they aired it.
Yeah.
They aired it 3 days, and today was the
Did they
last
make him a white
day.
boy on there?
Huh?
Did they make him white on in the movie?
No.
No, it's a documentary.
Okay,
It wasn't.
you know how they'll do it.
But they doing a movie. I think like it's a few black producers and that's behind it. Will Smith,
check that out.
Neil Long. I got bits and pieces of it because you have to. Hulu has the whole thing. Dayline ain't put it out. But I want to comment because I'm from Texas. I live in Houston.
Right.
And for one, Texas is a prejudiced ass state.
You're right, right.
And I love my state. I love Texas. Like I love Houston. So with Amber Geiger, I feel like it was a progression from where we came from, but she still got a slap on the wrist. Like that was like a slap in the face.
You know why I said what I said. I know niggas that killed niggas around me and got 5 years, got 10 years.
Me too.
Right.
Me too.
So for her to get 15 and she's not
a black woman though. Let have been a black female law went in there. Right. It would have been a whole different ball game.
Right, we know how they did it, but watch this. To get a guilty plea, I know it might sound minute right now, it might sound kind of weak, but in Dallas, to see so many
that's 4 hours
so
away.
Many people and not get charged and actually get somebody charged, it might sound kind of stupid because that's what we got to celebrate, getting something that small.
I understand it.
Go ahead.
It's a milestone. It is a milestone with justice from law enforcement. You know what I'm saying? But let it have been a black woman, she would have gotten life, a damn near 20. What's the minimum? 20?
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
So
no, you're right. You're right.
And of course, we got justice for Floyd. We got justice, for a few people that's been murdered. But what was I thinking? Ahmaud.
Yeah, a few people.
That's
it.
I think it would have been a milestone if they would have gave them the death penalty.
You know what I like about it though? They gave the dude that got out his bed and filmed too. They gave him life too. That's gonna scare all of them.
I can understand that. I can understand him getting life, but them other 2 South suckers.
Yeah,
they should have got the death penalty, and that would have been a milestone for us getting justice against prejudice and racial people.
Right.
Okay.
Especially
so the death
especially
penalty. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's not the same in every state. So
right.
I know that. That's what I was gonna get to next, man. That's what I was gonna
because I'm like, we all wanted the death penalty. We all wanted the death penalty. But
so
it's not, and I know, like, you know what I'm saying, every state is not the same. So therefore, let's go back to the most recent cases that we've had. Death penalty is not an option in the last 5 cases that we've had. It's not.
And I understand that. It's, I mean, but in the state of Texas, I don't know, because I think they did that. Did they have any findings of a hate crime with that?
In what? I'm sorry.
With our Ahmaud case. Yeah.
Oh, well, they're coming to capital charges for hate crimes. Yeah, that's their next sentence. But like, these niggas gonna die in jail, period.
No. I understand that, but what I'm saying, in the state of Texas, if you commit more than one crime and murdering somebody,
like a robbery with a murder or
so
rape
that was
with a murder.
But it's a hate crime. It's a hate crime. Does a hate crime in the state of Texas carry a conviction?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know that?
I'm saying with you talking about with a capital crime, the only thing you can get is life or death with a capital crime in Texas. So I get what you're saying, but if they plead out like, hey, we gonna plead out for a lesser and just get the life.
They've already gotten life sentences.
Right, they already got life right now.
Life. There's life.
I understand. I understand that, but y'all not understanding. I want y'all to understand.
They could if they would have did those. If they would have stacked it like that, they could have did that. But I guess for some reason, the way that they played it, the prosecutors, they felt like the judge, everybody. The jury, they felt like this was
I'm talking about taking their case. If it would have happened in Texas, my question is, does Texas carry a penal code and a punishment for hate crime? So was there a hate crime committed with Ahmaud on top of murder? I'm asking y'all opinion.
That's a great question. And look,
yes, we know it was a hate crime. Yes, it was. They killed him.
But were they convicted, Kimbo? What I'm saying, were they convicted of? Was they charged of that crime and murder?
No, not yet. No, they haven't been yet.
That's what she's saying. The next phase.
Yeah, that's it.
So how did they get life? How they get the time before they got the conviction guilty? I thought the guilty come and then the time.
Right, there's more than once you get found guilty on more than one charge. They
got the conviction from the murder, from they had 6 cases against them. So they're convicted of the murder. So they've already been
guilty, right?
Of the murder. Yeah.
They guilty. Have they been handed their time yet?
Yes.
A life sentence. Okay, then that's what I'm saying. That case is now solved. You see what I'm saying? In the state of Texas, because me and Kimbo, we from Texas. Does a hate crime, is a hate crime a penal code and a conviction here in the state of Texas? Because I think they committed a hate crime on top of a murder, even though it happened in another state and they don't have that law, or they don't have that penal code, or that punishment for that is due in the state of Texas. Do we carry a conviction for a hate crime? Because I believe they committed a hate crime on top of they murdered him.
Right. So the hate crime is a whole different trial. They haven't even been to trial for the hate crime yet, sis. They haven't.
So they've been charged for a hate crime.
No, yeah, they've been charged, but they haven't been to trial for it. They've only been convicted of the murder on 6 counts.
I thought they were that concurrent.
No,
They don't always work like that. You keep saying Texas. Texas the only one do the CC like that. Everybody don't want the concurrent.
So we hang motherfuckers out here. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking. I see the difference now. I understand.
Right.
So
yeah, so they haven't even been tried for the hate crimes yet. I think that's set to go in September. But
I got you. But I'm thinking in the state of, I'm thinking in the Texas, Houston. You know, I'm thinking that's how we work out here. They're gonna run a concurrent, and it's gonna be together. And two crimes.
Let me break it down like this.
They haven't even
the state verdict.
No. Hold on.
The state verdict was reached. The state is who gave them the life without parole. That the state gave them that. So now the federal charges, when you commit what you were talking about, civil rights violations or hate crimes, that's not a state crime. That's a federal crime. So now they finna go to court for the federal. Now, if you're asking me, will they kill you in the feds? Hell yeah, they'll kill you in the feds.
Right. So they
so I haven't been following it close, but since she brought it up, I'm like, okay, they got a guilty conviction, they got a life sentence. I thought they was done. I thought everything was done.
Kidnapping.
Look,
the kidnapping, the kidnapping that they got. The kidnapping is a federal charge for kidnapping him. Also, you keep speaking about the hate crime. The hate crime is a federal charge.
Right.
They killed him. It was a state charge. Now they finna get charged for the other shit. So let's say they would happen to get out of jail in the fucking some law to get them out of jail or in the state some kind of way. They just go to the motherfucking feds. So they ain't getting out. Even if they was to miraculously get out the state, you still gotta face the feds. And that hate crime shit, their asses, they out of there. They can hang it up.
They out of there because
at least they held accountable. At least they held accountable. That's out. That's
look. They finna die in jail, sis. They finna die in jail. But that still doesn't take back like what they did. You know, I get it.
Right. Think about how stupid people are. If you think if niggas killing each other is stupid, think about how stupid it is for them, the shit that they do. They just killed this man they had no reason to hate him other than his skin color, and they stupid prejudice. And they decided it's okay to kill this man.
And look, and if you listened, it like, because I watched everything. And when you listen to the sister, the mother, and the thing, when they gave they pleas to the judge, right? And if you listen to what the judge told them, like the judge had no mercy on them.
Right.
The judge had no mercy on them. So these motherfuckers finna die in jail. So now they finna go to the state, the hate, all that. They finna go. That's just gonna add on top of what they've already been sentenced to. And that's the great thing, because guess what? They really not finna survive in jail. Like you think they finna do fucking 60 years in jail? You going to jail in a entirely African American black jail?
I forgot. Man, we forgot about the show.
Orderly conduct and violating a local ordinance. Nixon quickly organized a boycott and chose a young, unknown local pastor to lead it, Martin Luther King. By December 7th, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover ordered agents to find information to discredit the young minister. The boycott had a devastating effect on Montgomery's public transit system. People carpooled, hitchhiked, rode with black taxi drivers, and walked miles every day. During the boycott, Dr. King's house was firebombed with his wife Coretta Scott and baby daughter Yolanda. Neither were harmed. The incident served to highlight King's commitment to nonviolence as he immediately spoke out against retaliation. King also spent 2 weeks in jail, bringing him national notoriety and placing him as a young leader of the black community. The boycott lasted 381 days. ending in victory when the United States Supreme Court declared Alabama's segregation laws for buses to be unconstitutional. This major triumph was not simply limited to buses in Alabama. It sparked life into the civil rights movement, beginning a renewed era in the fight for black rights. Rosa wasn't a tired old lady.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
I turned around quickly, and the next thing I saw was Malcolm falling back in a dead faint.
Dr. King, an enemy of the state. Black Panthers made use of California's open carry laws that allowed individuals to carry loaded rifles as long as they were displayed and not aimed at anyone. Police would be monitored from afar as they drove throughout black communities in order to prevent or stop unlawful police violence. This resulted in the Mulford Act of 1967, which repealed California's open carry laws in an attempt to disarm the Black Panthers. In protest, 30 Black Panthers armed themselves and went to the California State House. The nation was horrified. The Panthers' protest inadvertently helped pass the Mulford Act, which was signed into law by Governor Ronald Reagan, along with a measure outlawing firearms at the state capitol. This led to a wave of gun control regulations aimed mostly at blacks. The National Rifle Association worked closely with the U.S. government to pass strict gun regulations, all in response to the Black Panthers' lawful use of firearms. The government persecuted the Black Panthers both openly and covertly. Members were constantly watched, unlawfully imprisoned, harassed, and manipulated. Despite this, the Panthers only had a few violent run-ins with the law, which in many cases appeared to be incited and covered up by the government itself. Unfortunately, these incidents were and still are used to characterize the Black Panthers as militant thugs, instead of a revolutionary source of protection in the face of state-mandated violence. At its worst, the FBI orchestrated a police raid on the home of 21-year-old Panther leader Fred Hampton. Hampton was asleep with his pregnant fiancée when he was shot twice in the head. An autopsy revealed that Hampton had been drugged the night before. A former FBI agent has since revealed that Hampton was drugged by an FBI informant in a plot to assassinate him. Hampton was unconscious at the time of his murder. Another Panther was killed in the raid, and 7 others were beaten, arrested, and charged with attempted murder of the officers conducting the raid. The media was told that the Panthers shot first and disobeyed multiple orders to cease fire, while an investigation revealed that only 1 shot came from the Panthers and 80 came from the police. And this is what they base their fear of the Panthers' legacy on. Lies. They say the Panthers were like a black version of the KKK. This couldn't be any further from the truth. It was called the Black Panther Party for self-defense for a reason. But for those who choose to fight against the government's oppression, you have summoned the demon, and it will destroy you in a way you can't understand.
You are the ones who are going to decide for yourselves what happened in that apartment on the morning of December 4th. You're going to decide whether or not Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were the victims of premeditated murder.
Thereafter, 3 times, Sergeant Groth ordered all his men to cease firing and told the occupants to come out with their hands up.
And yet the federal grand jury concludes that only 1 possible shot could have come from a Panther weapon.
Just lied.
It would have us believe that even though there was only 1 Panther shot, they called for a ceasefire on 3 different occasions and didn't get it, so they continued their firing.
This is where our chairman had his brains blown out, and he lay in his bed, sleeping at 4:30 in the morning. still half asleep, I looked up and I saw bullets coming from, it looked like the front of the apartment, from the kitchen area. They were, pigs were just shooting. The mattress was just going, you could feel the bullets going into it. I just knew we'd be dead, everybody in there. When he looked up, just looked up, he didn't say a word, and he didn't move, except for moving his head up. He laid his head back down. At that time, I was 8.5 to 9 months pregnant. My baby was to be delivered in 2 weeks. Pigs kept on shooting.
My recruitment by the FBI was very efficient, very simple, really. I'd stolen a car and went joyriding over the state limit, and they had a potential case against me, and I was looking for an opportunity to work it off. FBI agent Roy Mitchell asked me to go down to the local office of the Black Panther Party and try to gain membership. We tried to develop negative information to discredit him, just like we did everybody else. We, meaning the FBI, I tried to come up with signs of him doing drugs or something, and never could. He was clean. He was dedicated. I've had private conversations with him. We got along pretty well. Mitchell became more specific during that time. He needed to know who was staying at what locations. We both were speechless. We just walked through the house and saw what had taken place and where he died, and it was shocking. And then I just began to realize that the information that I supplied leading up to that moment had facilitated that raid.
The chairman.
I believe that I'm going to do my job, and I believe that I was born not to die in a car wreck. I don't believe I'm going to die in a car wreck. I don't believe I'm going to die from slipping on a piece of ice. I don't believe I'm going to die because I got a bad heart. I don't believe I'm going to die because of lung cancer. I believe that I'm going to be able to die what I was the thing that I was born for. I believe that I'm going to be able to die high off the people. I believe that I will be able to die as a revolutionary in the international revolutionary protest struggle. And I hope that each one of you will be able to die in the international protest revolutionary struggle, or you didn't be able to live in it. And I think that struggle is going to come. Why don't you live for the people? Why don't you struggle for the people? Why don't you die for the people?
Black organizations were routinely surveilled, discredited, infiltrated, and violently silenced by the United States government. They had been doing so for decades, but in 1956, the FBI made their operations official with the creation of the Counterintelligence Program, better known as Cointelpro. Initially, Cointelpro was created to infiltrate the Communist Party of USA, but was also used to justify the surveillance of black leaders and organizations under the assumption that they too had been influenced by communists. Cointelpro's stated goals were to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize individuals deemed as enemies of the state. A 1968 memo from longtime FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover specifically addressed what the government called black nationalist hate groups. In it, Hoover states that Cointelpro must prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. In unity, there is strength. The memo then mentions Malcolm X, who had already been assassinated, Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as possible messiah figures. What did they mean by prevent the rise of a messiah? A messiah is a leader or savior of a particular group or cause. In this case, it was an individual who had the ability to inspire the black community to continually fight for and gain true freedom and equality. That is what the government was trying to stop. So what did Cointelpro actually do? FBI agents infiltrated organizations to destroy them from within. They made anonymous phone calls to their targets, providing them with false information, often accusing other black groups of wrongdoing in order to discourage unity. They conducted illegal break-ins. They used the media to destroy public opinion on target groups. They created movements led by FBI agents. Hoover encouraged agents to make up information, and they assaulted and assassinated targets, among many other covert actions sanctioned by the government. Evil. Cointelpro sent a letter to Dr. King, accusing him of infidelity and suggesting that he commit suicide before accepting the Nobel Peace Prize. Cointelpro infiltrated the Nation of Islam, purposely creating division between Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, leading to his assassination. Cointelpro threatened the career of an agent who said that the San Francisco Black Panther Party's main purpose was feeding children. They expected him to find evidence of violent revolution, and when he didn't, they worked to undermine the Panthers' food program. Cointelpro plotted the assassination of Black Panther leader Fred Hampton. They also controlled and infiltrated many events leading to the deaths of other leaders, including Dr. King and Malcolm X. Let's make it simple. Cointelpro was a secret war waged by the United States government against blacks who were working towards true equality and freedom. Their supposed goal was to stop violence. Instead, they became that violence. In 1971, an FBI office in Pennsylvania was burglarized by the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI. They found the Cointelpro files and exposed them to the media. This led J. Edgar Hoover to declare the end of the program, although the FBI continued to target black organizations. In 2017, a leaked FBI counterterrorism report used the term black identity extremists to describe potentially violent black activists angered by police brutality. Critics believe that this was done to further demonize black movements. Since 2019, the term is no longer in use, and any other covert government operations remain cloaked in darkness. What if Cointelpro remained a secret? What if we never saw behind the curtain? And even more importantly, what secret activities are they concealing now?
Free me.
An impartial investigative agency dedicated to serving the people of the United States. Its fundamental role, to protect the innocent, to apprehend the guilty. This is your FBI.
Want to join me here? Won't you be seated, please, ladies and gentlemen? Come on, Dr. Jaffe. Mr. Krogh, Mr. Ehrlichman. Fine. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to summarize for you the meeting that I have just had with the bipartisan leaders, which began at 8 o'clock and was completed 2 hours later. I began the meeting by making this statement, which I think needs to be made to the nation. America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
There goes the stuff. Yeah. Boom.
Reagan.
Drugs are menacing our society. They're threatening our values and undercutting our institutions.
No, stop.
They're killing our children.
You know him, Mel.
Yeah.
You know Barbara, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Nancy.
Mary Melodies, come on. You asked us to stop. You said stop. So you had something to say. So shh.
Kill. Say no to drugs.
Of course, your local drug pusher may tell you a little something different about these drugs. What would I do if someone offered me these drugs? I'd tell them to take a hike.
Are you getting all of this?
Oh, man.
5 seconds ago, I was real tired.
You saying crack?
Right now, I got energy. I can get up from here now and walk to the moon.
Wait for man.
Walk to the moon.
That nigga say he can walk to the moon. Wait for man. Walk to the moon. That nigga say he can walk to the moon.
Hey! Hey! We could all walk to the moon. Hey! Hey! We could all walk to the moon. Hey! Hey! We could all walk to the moon.
We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
Do you regret your advocacy for the crime bill?
Well, look, I supported the crime bill. My husband has apologized. He was the president who actually signed it. I'm sorry for the consequences.
Hey, Mark, whoever you is, man, I can't see nobody on there, man. I ain't that young, I can't see nobody, man.
That were unintended and that have had a very unfortunate impact on people's lives.
It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. Tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock.
That's what I'm saying, man. Cam up, Mark, or you ain't getting in, man.
Without any structure, without any conscience developing, we should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now.
You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all.
That's our president. That's our current president.
In fact, I drafted the bill, as you remember.
I know that.
And by the way, we talk about this mostly in terms of Black Lives Matter. Black lives really do matter. But the problem is institutional racism in America. That's the overarching problem that still exists. And we should be talking about it. And you look at it, the legacy of racism in housing and jobs and so on. So,
to call your own citizens super predators.
Oh, that was you, Mary Melody. I didn't know who that was.
And, you know, and it's pretty.
I didn't know who that was. My bad.
It's just like the term thug or hoodlum. You know, it's just an easy.
Man, this folk, I didn't even know what
paint
time
somebody
it is.
with.
Hold on, Mel. Man, I just look, man. It's 4-something in the morning over here, man. I'm finna get out of here, Mel. I'm gonna get out of here, y'all, and I'm gonna catch up with y'all tomorrow, man. We're gonna do a part 2 or something, Mel. Salute to everybody, man. Part 2 or something.